This is going to sound strangely familiar, but I started with a dream I had. A few years back, probably about 4 years ago now, 3 or 4, I don't know exactly, I had a dream about a hypothetical third Flumpty game that took place in an empty cabin on a mountain with a blizzard outside. On each of the 4 walls of this cabin was a wide open door Flumpty and Blam would sometimes appear behind, and just looking at them was enough to make them vanish back into the storm. If I had directly translated the stream into game form, the gameplay would have been garbage, because all you'd have to do is spin around in a circle and you'd win. Still, I liked the idea of a real third game taking place in a freezing cold environment, so I made the office a freezer and turned the temperature into a mechanic. In hindsight, I realize the furnace is pretty similar to the music box in FNAF 2, which I have some reservations about, but my hope was that it would feel like a safe zone for the player at first, and then I would introduce a mechanic which shows that not even the one safe zone is truly safe, like any good horror. I knew early on that I wanted to bring back the whole gang from the first 2 games without introducing any new characters, because this final game is sort of their curtain call. I briefly tried to work in the blind monster I left out of Flumpty's 2, but the idea didn't fit then, it didn't fit this time either, it would have felt forced, and it was simply not meant to be. The reason Empty Bumpty is not in the game, by the way, is because by the time I announced the game it was actually already finished, and I just made it sound like it hadn't been started yet because I wanted to give Click Team more time for the ports without people complaining. I don't know, it took a long time anyway. Either way, Empty Bumpty was added to the first game after the third one was already finished, and it was just meant to be a little bonus anyway, nothing really important. Blam, as is tradition, is pretty neutral. He follows a path to the office, and you know he's about to enter when he has the Kevin Jr. pose. Golden Flumpty has always been a reference to Golden Freddy, who is a hallucination. Turning him into a hallucination like the ones in FNAF 3 just made sense in my head. Someone had to come out of the furnace, and the red man seemed like the obvious choice because he's associated with fire and lava, although the idea of having him teleport through a portal in the wall was sort of carried over from the Grunkfist portals in the cancelled 1 Week at Flumpty's plans. Several things were carried over from those plans, one of the most obvious things being the snapshot camera, which I repurposed for use in the office instead of the security cameras because I wanted to force players to use the monitor to determine when a character is right outside, and lighting up the darkness in front of you with a flash of light just seemed like a cool way of fending them off. When balancing the game, I felt like there needed to be more of a reason to make every snapshot deliberate, which is why if you flash the light at Grunkfist the impatient clown, he attacks you unlike the other characters. It also worked out well because the room Grunkfist comes out of this time is an exhibit for clown art, which is an idea I was rather happy with, and it makes sense for an art exhibit to have a sign prohibiting flash photography. There was no way I couldn't bring back both the beaver and the owl this time, but one thing I didn't want to carry over from the cancelled 1 week plans was the toilet paper mummy beaver idea, because I knew everybody would be expecting that, and I was right. I also tried to find a way to implement both characters separately without their mechanics being identical, because having every character behave in a unique way is just my preference, but nothing I came up with felt natural. I eventually had the idea to kill off the owl like I killed off the beaver, and combine the corpses of these 2 functionally very similar characters into one twisted-looking chimera, which felt nice and spooky and didn't sacrifice gameplay. I think Eyesore was the last character whose mechanic I came up with for the first night, because by that point it felt like I'd covered all the bases with the other characters and I didn't know what else to add that would maintain the balance of the mechanics. Most likely what led to me putting Eyesore in the door was the fond, eerie mental image of all those eyes staring at you from the darkness, and I'd say it serves as a nice extra incentive not to look at the security cameras for too long.